If you had asked me a year ago, I never would have imagined that I would be the type of man to abandon his own honeymoon. The thought of me, the guy who always thought ahead, who believed in love, would have made me giggle. Marriage was supposed to be about cooperation and understanding, but life has a humorous way of pointing out your mistakes. It all began when I first met Lena, who was not only gorgeous, but also compassionate. She was the kind of woman who entered a room and made it feel brighter and warmer. The air itself seemed to change to make room for her. She was self-assured, ambitious, and from our very first conversation, I was drawn to her easy charm, the kind that made people want to be around her. She had opinions, dreams, and a laugh that could wipe out anything else I could remember about us. Our first date took place at a small, cozy restaurant in the heart of the city, where jazz music played softly in the background. We talked about everything, our backgrounds, our careers, the type of future we envisioned for ourselves. She told me about her job in corporate finance, climbing the ladder in a cutthroat company. I respected her ambition, and she respected mine. We seemed to fit together like two puzzle pieces. At first, it seemed normal when she would bring up her mother Diane in conversation. Most people have close relationships with their parents, but Lena's relationship with Diane was different. Not only did she love her mother, but she relied on her for every major decision, every minor one, too. If we planned a weekend trip, Diane had to be consulted first. If we wanted to try a new restaurant, Diane's opinion mattered. Even down to the clothes Lena wore on our dates, Diane had a say in it. The first real warning sign came when I planned a surprise weekend getaway for Lena's birthday. A peaceful cabin by the lake, just the two of us, fireplace, wine, no outside distractions. When I handed her the tickets, she hesitated. "Wow, this looks fantastic," she said, but her voice didn't match her words. She was already reaching for her phone. At first, I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Ask her?" "Lena, you're a grown woman." She gave me a small smile but didn't answer. She sent a message. A few minutes later, she frowned at the screen. "Maybe we could go another time. Mom was really hoping we'd have dinner with her this weekend. I should have seen it for what it was. But love makes you blind." Instead of pressing the issue, I smiled and said, "Okay, next time." Months passed. Lena and I built a life together, or at least that's what I told myself. I loved her. And even though Diane was always present in our relationship, I thought we were strong enough to handle it. I told myself Diane was just being protective, that it was normal, that I was just adjusting to a new dynamic. Then the wedding planning started. Diane wasn't just involved, she took over. She controlled everything. The guest list, the venue, the food, the music. She micromanaged me until I felt like an afterthought at my own wedding. It was as if I wasn't marrying Lena. I was marrying into Diane and Lena's already existing partnership. One night, after another argument over something Diane insisted on changing, I finally asked Lena outright, "Do you even want to get married?" She looked at me as if I had offended her. "Of course I do," she sighed. "What kind of question is that?" "It's the kind of question I have to ask when it feels like you need permission to be in this relationship," I said. She ran a hand through her hair. "I can't just ignore my mother. She's always been there for me. I'm not asking you to ignore her. I'm asking you to prioritize us." She looked down at the floor. There was a long pause before she muttered, "I don't know if I can." That was the moment I should have left. But love makes fools of us all. The final straw came on the day we were supposed to leave for our honeymoon. Lena handed me a train ticket. Not a plane ticket. A train ticket. She and Diane were flying in comfort. I was supposed to trail behind. Them. Alone. Something inside me snapped. I looked at her. The woman I had just married. And in that moment, I knew. I would always be an outsider in my own marriage. I smiled, took my luggage, and for the first time, I said the words that I knew she would never forget. You're going to regret this. Then I walked away. Looking back, I wonder how I let it get that far. Maybe I was blinded by love. Maybe I just didn't want to admit what was happening. But the signs were there. The wedding had never been about us. It had been about Diane and the marriage. It never really stood a chance. Do you know how? Lena, you are acting like a child, which is embarrassing. Get over it and come to the... I erased the voicemail at the airport before she could ruin the entire trip, and for the first time in a long time, I felt liberated. The moment of regret came when my phone buzzed again the following morning while I was checking out of the hotel. Lena. I thought about ignoring it, but before I could even say hello, her voice called out to me. She muttered in terror, "I don't know what to do." They had overbooked the flight and Mom was yelling at the attendants, making a fuss at the gate while everyone was staring. Unfortunately, they might not even allow us to board. I waited, letting the silence stretch. When she eventually inquired, in a tiny voice, I smiled. Not because I was joyful at her anguish, but because this was the moment she realized she needed me. She finally understood. I took a long breath, exhaled slowly, and stated, "I don't need her." And the final thing I said was, "No, Lena, you can work this out without my help." The best thing about independence, I concluded, is how light it makes you feel. The worst thing is how much you realize you were carrying until you finally shed the weight. I woke up in a hotel room that wasn't mine the morning after I left. No lingering scent of Lena's perfume on the pillow, no sound of her voice, and no trace of her presence. Diane's phone wasn't buzzing. There was just silence. And my cow, God, it felt good. I didn't care what Lena had to say last night, so I took my time getting dressed and didn't check my phone. Definitely not this morning. I was fully aware of what had happened at the airport. Diane had most likely lost her temper, barking at the airline employees as if she were royalty, outraged that their flight was delayed or overbooked. Lena, standing beside her, uneasy but too cowardly to say anything. That was their problem, not mine. I showered. I got ready. I packed my bag and decided where I wanted to spend my sudden, unexpected alone time. But as soon as I grabbed my phone, curiosity getting the best of me, I saw 8 missed calls, 4 voicemails, and 4 texts. Lena's messages were quick. The first voicemail was soft. "Darling, could we just have a conversation? I know you're upset, but you just walked away." I wasn't expecting that. I assumed you would at least come to the airport so we could talk. "Call me when you're ready." I rolled my eyes. The second voicemail? A shift. This was only a travel arrangement. "You were still coming for the honeymoon. It's not like I was leaving you." And then, the third message. "Oh, this one. I don't know what to do. They overbooked the plane and Mom is ranting at the workers, making a scene at the gate. Everyone's staring. It's awful. They might not even let us board." I nearly laughed because I could see it so clearly. Diane, arms crossed, voice raised, demanding to talk to someone in charge, likely using words like unacceptable, while Lena, desperate to prevent a full explosion, scrambled to calm her down, and they wanted me to go there and fix it. Lena's last voicemail, her voice trembled. "Please, just come to the airport. I don't want to do this alone." I took a deep breath, and for the first time, it wasn't Diane who needed me. It was Lena. I glanced through the texts. At first, she tried justifying herself. Then, "Why aren't you answering my messages?" Then, "We should talk." And finally, my favorite. "You can't just leave like this. You're my husband." I stared at the message for a long while. Then I typed back. "You gave me a rail ticket while you and your mother flew first class, so yeah, I can actually leave." I didn't wait for a response. I grabbed my suitcase, left the hotel, and stepped into the world as a free man. Meanwhile, Lena was crumbling in the airport lounge. She clutched her phone, her hands shaking as she unraveled, Diane's voice echoing in the background. The airline hadn't denied them boarding because the flight was overbooked. They denied them because Diane had made such a scene that they weren't allowed on the plane at all. Now, Lena sat there, alone, while her husband was gone. She checked her phone again. Nothing. And then she saw it. His message. You gave me a rail ticket while you and your mother flew first class. So yeah, I can actually leave. Her stomach dropped. He wasn't just angry, he was done. Lena looked up as Diane scoffed. He's not coming. Lena swallowed. Well, then he's just being dramatic. Diane crossed her arms. I told you he was too sensitive. A real man wouldn't just walk away like that. For the first time, Lena winced at her mother's words. Because for the first time, they didn't feel like reassurance. For the first time, she realized she had pushed him away. She had ignored the signs, every warning, every time he tried to tell her something was wrong, and now, when she truly needed him, when she was trapped in an airport, humiliated, exhausted, he wasn't there. Diane sighed. Come on, darling. We'll book another flight and forget about him. Don't let him ruin our vacation. A week ago, Lena might have agreed. She might have convinced herself that he was just being childish, that things would go back to normal. But now, she wasn't so sure. She glanced at her phone again. She read his message over and over. For the first time in her life, she understood. She had really lost him. The thing about leaving is that relief doesn't come all at once. It comes in waves, the four. First wave hit when I walked out of our apartment with my bag. The second came when I checked into my hotel, standing there with a rail ticket, as if it were a joke. The third wave arrived in the taxi to the airport, and now, sitting at my gate, sipping coffee, waiting for my flight, there was no anger, no bitterness, just clarity. My phone buzzed. Lena. I let it ring. Then I smirked. I texted, Where are you? For years, I let her control every aspect of my life, rearranging everything for her comfort, allowing her mother to dictate our relationship. But now, I watched as the typing dots appeared, then her response. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I leaned back, rolled the words around in my mind. Because here's the thing about mistakes. They're accidental. She didn't accidentally prioritize her mother. She chose to. She didn't accidentally disregard my feelings. She chose to. So now, I made my own choice. Enjoy your honeymoon with your mother. I'll enjoy my trip alone. I blocked her, and as the plane took off, I closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I was taking care of myself. No compromises, no justifications, just freedom. And damn, it felt good.